Hello and welcome to another installment of Lean Focus webinar series. Today's topic is a lean business system assessment process, whereby which we will outline the steps we take working with our clients to assess not only their tools that exist in their lean business system, but how those tools are brought to life inside of these sites and functions that make up the enterprise, both culturally and physically in terms of their maturity. Next slide, please. This presentation is the proprietary information of Lean Focus, and we will be generating a recording from today's webinar, and in a moment we'll give you the instructions on how you can access those training materials post-webinar. Next. All of today's participants will be placed in listen-only mode, and if you look in your GoToWebinar control panel, you will notice different menu drop-down options. One of those is a handouts drop-down menu that has handouts 1 of 5. If you click during the webinar, you can actually access and download the webinar selling materials for the overview of this topic that talks about how this topic works. And you can download that PDF to have as a resource after the webinar is over. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask the panelists that we're going to introduce to you here in a second, you can type those questions in the GoToWebinar question control panel. So again, it's another drop-down menu. We click that, type in your question. I will know as the moderator who asked the question, and at the end of today's webinar, I'm going to moderate those questions for the panelists. So please type in any question that you think along the way. And we should have sufficient time at the end of today's webinar to go through those. As I mentioned earlier, a recording of this webinar is going to be made. So that will be emailed to the same email address that you used to register for this webinar. And you should receive that one day after the conclusion of this webinar. And if you do not receive that, please make sure to check your spam folder and add Lean Focus to your approved email recipients and senders so that that doesn't happen in the future. Next. A little bit on Lean Focus. So Lean Focus is a lean business system consultancy that works with our clients to create high performance cultures. We believe that high performance cultures are a 3-part equation, starting with driven leaders who possess the mindset, behaviors, and values that drive an overall lean transformation inside the company to create the right culture. Guiding principles, we have 14 guiding principles that we use in conjunction with our lean business system that help our clients stay on the path towards lean transformation, and these are embedded in everything that they do. And then proven systems and tools, one of which is the tool that we're going to share today, the Lean Business System Assessment. And it's a collection of structured processes and tools that we use with our clients to achieve that lean transformation that become the lean business system themselves. Next. We work across 8 practice areas with our clients, and today's topic actually resides in the leadership practice because it's a tool and process we use to help develop the organization's capabilities around lean. So we'll go into that a little deeper. But we can see here that we cover a lot of different areas with our clients. And when we're doing transformations with clients, oftentimes we're working across all 8 of these areas at the same time. So when we talk a practice area, it basically means that there's people that specialize in our organization in these particular areas, whether that be lean or operations focused continuous improvement, growth or commercial excellence. We actually work with our clients to place talent into their organizations via retained search and interim leadership. So we think of ourselves as really the one-stop transformation shop, if you will, when you're trying to achieve that high performance business system culture that we talked about on the previous slide. But today's topic will be squarely in the leadership component of our practice area. Next. This is just a snapshot of the types of clients that we work with and the verticals that we've worked in. And as you can see, it's a rather diverse mix of clients. We've worked with over 600 clients in the last 7 years since Lean Focus has been started ranging in size from a Fortune 10 automotive big three all the way down to venture capital, pre-revenue funded startup, and everything in between. Publicly traded, privately held, family-owned businesses, service companies, manufacturing enterprises. What they all share in common is that there is a leadership team that has initiated a lean journey. That could be from the beginning, it could be a restart, but they're on some sort of lean business system journey to create that high performance culture inside their organization that we spoke of earlier. And we work in a number of different capacities, whether that be on a one-off transactional basis, with a particular Kaizen event around a specific problem, all the way to large enterprise-wide transformations that work across all 8 practice areas that we mentioned in the previous slide. Next, when we work with our clients, we're oftentimes helping them create their own lean business system. This is the lean focus business system that we use. Today's topic is going to be, as I mentioned, in the leadership pillar of what we do, and it's circled there in red. It's got the lean toolbox assessment, which the panelist is going to go through. And then in conjunction with assessing the tools that our clients are using, we actually go into the sites and or functions to look for evidence of how these tools are being brought into the organization to deliver results, but also change the culture. And that's where we're going to spend our time on today's webinar. Next. So without further ado, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce you today to today's panelist, Jeff Dahm. Jeff is a director of our operations practice in Lean Focus, and he's been with us for quite some time now. So I'll let Jeff introduce himself and introduce today's topic. Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Damon. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Dahm. I'm excited today to share this information with you. This is my 3rd year with Lean Focus, and today we're going to share some examples of a formal lean business assessment that we've done for a few of our clients. My career began with Alcoa Aluminum Company and was part of the lean business system launch back in the 1990s. The majority of my roles were in manufacturing, operations, got into strategy, production planning, supply chain as well. Also had assignments in Switzerland and in Hungary. It's interesting in Hungary as we're trying to introduce lean concepts, lean business system implementation in a previously state-owned communist culture. And that provided a lot of learning for me early in my career. After 15 years with Alcoa, I went on to John Deere and initially started with them in product complexity management, trying to lean out their product offering, and then got into their lean business system team. And really there, it was trying to transition them, and we were successful in transitioning them from a focus on tools, just the tools, and into a focus on the culture and the behaviors needed for excellence. Now in my 3rd year with Lean Focus, have been busy with engaging with different clients, working with many of the different processes that Damon showed in the slide of the Lean Focus Lean Business System. So today we're going to cover the Lean Business System assessment. We'll talk about what it is, when do it, why do it. We'll get into the process, share some examples of the Lean Site Assessment and the Lean Toolbox Assessment, kind of 2 pieces of the Lean Business System. And then how to use the outputs, next steps, and then there will be some time at the end for some Q&A. So the Lean Business System, what is it? When we look at the Lean Business System assessment, it's really part of it is evaluating the toolbox, understanding the current state, and if it is established well enough to drive your initiatives. We assess the maturity of the tool adoption at your key sites, and then we also talk with leaders. We engage with leaders and understand their role in and their effectiveness in implementing the systems as well. And so getting into the details of the assessment, it dives deep into the current level of deployment and execution through engagement with your employees and go into Gemba. We'll talk more about each one of these, but the reality of the current state is revealed. The process identifies the strengths in the system that we can leverage. Every business system deployment has some strengths. You've all got some strengths to build from. We identify those, but then we also look at the opportunities that will be, that if we address those, will provide some breakthrough improvement for you. The engagement is ideal for companies who have a comprehensive lean deployment across multiple sites. If you're just getting started in lean, this may be a little bit more advanced for you, but certainly something that you can learn from in terms of how to get to the next level. The results provide the insight needed to develop a roadmap, really what's needed for taking your efforts to the next level. So when do it? A lot of times you have new leadership coming into an organization and they don't know the organization, they don't know the people real well, they don't know the processes. And so we may come in to give that evaluation, give that assessment, and provide them a head start on understanding where they need to take the company. Many times after a merger and acquisition, there's a collection of different units, different facilities, and this assessment provides that insight into not just understanding what the gaps are, but developing that roadmap on how to take the next steps. Many times after acquisitions, you get these rogue sites. You have some units that are not quite in line with everybody else. Maybe they're more advanced, maybe they're less advanced. But we can identify really what those, where those differences are across the organization and try to make sure that we develop a plan for driving consistency and alignment. Maybe you're just losing ground in competition. Your competitors have been doing this for a while. Maybe they're better at this than you, and we can give you that insight into how to gain ground on them. Many times we're looking at variations and inconsistencies across these large companies, lots of different sites. One of my first engagements with Lean Focus was working with a large company, and they wanted to work on standard work. And evaluating across their business, they had 5 different versions of standard work. And so we worked together to develop one version that was going to be effective, that could be rolled out and deployed across all of their sites. And many times the current approach is just not meeting expectations. A lot of companies have been working on Lean for a long time and just not getting where they want to be. And so this assessment can help you identify really what is missing. What's missing on the tool side, what's missing on the execution side, what's missing on the cultural side. So as you reflect on these different areas, maybe some of these issues are in your business and apply to where you're at and why you're here today learning about this. So why do it? Really, Lean Focus is comprised of senior level experience and getting those folks to come in to be able to put a new set of eyes on the things that you're doing. Discover really why you're not getting the results that you're looking for. Building upon the strengths of your current state. As I stated, all of you have strengths in what you're doing. How do we build those and leverage those to get to the next level? And then certainly identify the opportunities and prioritize those opportunities that are going to drive breakthrough improvement. Improving your process towards a culture of CI and problem solving, and by integrating and connecting the Lean Business System processes. A lot of the gaps that we see are that all of our efforts are in silos and not really connecting the different systems together. And we can recognize and identify when that's happening. And then in the end, being able to develop a game plan for taking your business, driving that continuous improvement, driving that culture. How do we get there? We can work with you on that roadmap for getting to excellence. Again, what is the opportunity in your business? Maybe a few of these apply. So let's get into the Lean Business System Assessment, the process. So as we get into this is a slide that Damon showed earlier, all of the elements of the Lean Focused Business System. And primarily, we've been working in the operations side. So most of these assessments have been in the operations side. We look at the foundational tools primarily and evaluate each of these. And then we might get into really anything that you're looking for. We have the skill set and the expertise within Lean Focus to be able to evaluate any one of these systems. When we get into operations, we might select some of these other elements within the Lean system. You look at TPM, look at Kanban, material flow, these kind of things. And then also within leadership, we've looked at, typically, we'll look at the performance management, leadership development, rewards and recognition, those kind of elements. And we select a handful, we customize this assessment for your needs. So the process itself, and as we go through today, we'll be talking about two things, both the site assessment as well as the toolbox assessment. So first, talking about the site assessment, it starts off with, before we get there, we're looking at surveys and pre-work. So we send a survey out to the CI team and to the leadership team to get their perspective on where things are at. And then once we get to the site, we go to Gemba. We make some observations. We'll talk to people at all levels, associates, team leads, supervisors, support staff as well. And we'll learn some things. And then we'll keep going back. We'll keep digging into what we see and what we hear. And then we also have one-on-one time with the leadership team. So with that, we get very good perspective of where they're at on their journey, their perspective, their engagement in the process. And that is really telling in terms of driving the results and the engagement of the leadership and the connection of the leadership in terms of the results that we're getting. The feedback that we provide primarily consists of identifying the strengths and opportunities. We compile the survey results that we got from the individuals. And then in this example that I'm showing, we went, and there were 12 different sites that we went to across many different types of businesses, 12 different, there was probably 5 or 6 different divisions. And for each of those 12 sites, we provided site level detail. And we'll get into the details of what we provided, but the site level detail for each one of those sites. And then we roll that up into the company summary for them to see overall where they're at. We make some recommendations and provide an improvement roadmap. That is the site evaluation, and we do the toolbox evaluation as well. It can be done in parallel. It can be done separately as well. But for the toolbox assessment, it's a little bit simpler flow. But before the visit or we just need access to the Lean Business System Toolbox. We have a structured process to do a review to make sure the toolbox is fully developed and to set you off in the right place for deployment. And then we make some recommendations for improvements within the toolbox. So the agenda, what does that look like for both the site evaluation and the toolbox evaluation? We talked about pre-work. We just need a little bit on the business overview, some of the KPIs. We might ask for some VSMs if they exist, those kind of things, and then the leadership surveys, as I mentioned. We also look at, once we arrive on day one, we get into a kickoff, introductions, we meet the leadership team, We get a little bit more information about the site, a site overview, and then we spend the next, really the day and a half, 2 days going to Gemba. So we go and we make some observations, we look around, and we investigate. And through that investigation, we'll talk to people at all levels. We'll talk to a lot of associates, a lot of team leads, supervisors, get their perspective on where things are at. And then at the end of the day, end of each day, we'll have some one-on-one time with the leadership team, talking with them and verifying some of the things we saw, getting their understanding of where we're at as well. The next day, we start out, as we've already spent a day at the site, we have some pretty good insight into what the strengths are, what the opportunities are. So we provide, it's really informal, but we have a discussion with the leadership team on what we saw and get some feedback from them in terms of maybe we need to go look in some other areas. If there's any questions, any concerns that they have, we touch base in the morning there. And then we spend the rest of the day, the second day, going to Gemba again, verifying some things. We will have our own questions, concerns, or maybe we need some more evidence. Everything that we provide back is based on evidence that we've seen. We've talked to people. We've made some observations out on the shop floor. Towards the afternoon, we'll take a break. We're able to compile our thoughts in the afternoon of day 2 so that we can provide feedback for the site leadership. Sometimes they ask for that for a few days later, but we're able to offer that the afternoon of the second day. But after the visit, what we end up, the deliverables from this evaluation is a site-by-site summary for each of the sites that we've been at, and then a company roll-up, a compilation comparison across the sites, as well as that roadmap for business system improvement and recommended next steps. So that is the site assessment. And then looking at the toolbox assessment, we covered most of this, but really just getting access to all the materials that are used, the training materials, the facilitation materials, the templates, all those things, getting access to that. We have a process to review that for completeness, clarity, and effectiveness, and allows us to make some recommendations on what to do with the toolbox. So getting to the lean site assessment, we'll share some examples. The first is around the pre-work request. So we send out surveys to the leadership team. We send it to the CI management, the practitioners. We send that to them. It takes them about 15 minutes to fully complete. These are the elements of that survey. We send them a survey on their tools, and we ask them to rank their tools, provide a grade for the tools 1 through 5. Where are you at? And it's interesting the perspectives that we get back from them on each of the different tools that are within scope of the assessment. We also talk about the culture. So looking at the culture, some examples of this might be we go see yourself. Going to Gemba is part of the culture that we have. Leaders teaching, is that part of the culture? And we ask the people filling out these surveys just how strong is that evident in the current culture. We also look at lean leadership, and on the left is the traditional organization, on the right is a lean organization. And we ask all the people submitting these surveys to rate themselves on this spectrum between traditional and lean, and where are you at? Things like focusing on the short-term results versus long-term strategic. Asking when there are problems, asking who, going into blaming versus asking why. Talking the talk versus walking the walk. Walking the talk, sorry. So where are we at in that spectrum between traditional and lean? And then there's also an individual assessment, just asking some things like, I think, I think lean is probably not well suited in the commercial areas. Lean is something that I deploy to delegate to my people. These kind of things, and it's really telling, giving these to people, and typically we'll share that with and try to get 8 to 10 people from the organization to fill out these surveys, and it's very interesting and telling of the type of responses that are provided back. It's also interesting, in the ratings, when we look at the ratings, typically the highest ratings that we get from the people providing the submissions are folks that don't have a lot of experience with lean, and they think that we're doing really well. When we encounter people that have a lot of experience with lean, they may not rate themselves as high because they realize where they're at in their current state. So the site visit, what to expect. We take a standard approach, so we start off with the kickoff and the Q&A with the leadership team. We go to Gemba. We'll be looking at whatever's in scope for the assessment, whatever has been identified, 6S, daily management, those type of things. We'll be making observations, asking questions about all of those things. We'll do Gemba interviews with really anybody that we can talk to. When we hear something, when we see something that raises a flag or gives us an idea that, hey, this is a strength, this is an opportunity, we'll go ask some more questions and verify. We do leadership interviews to gain their perspective, their level of experience, as well as their engagement in the process. And, all along the process, typically we're walking along with their CI folks, with their site leadership team, members of it. We don't like a large party walking around talking to people, but there'll be plenty of opportunities in engaging with those folks throughout the 2 days to be able to provide ongoing discussions, coaching, as well as initial feedback that we give during the site assessment itself. And then at the end, we give them a package basically of what that looks like. So, and it looks something like this. Here's some examples of a site visit. The feedback examples, we provide an executive summary. In this executive summary, we have the strengths and opportunities. These are the biggest strengths and the biggest opportunities. An example of that, we went to one site and the way they were doing their Gemba walks, it was really good. They were doing Gemba walks not just for daily management, walking around and seeing how we're doing on our KPIs, but they had Gemba walks for safety. They had Gemba walks for 6S. They had Gemba walks for process verification. They had Gemba walks for just engagement, different things, and they had that in a structured way. So that was one of the strengths. One of the opportunities that we saw was around their Kaizens. Their Kaizens were mainly driven by their CI organizations and very lack of engagement from process owners, from the operations teams. And so buy-in was very challenging for them. So we provided that feedback. For each of the systems that we looked at, we provided a summary. And for each one of these, in this case, we had strategy, deployment, and value stream mapping on this page. We provide the strengths and the opportunities. We also provide red, yellow, green type of relative rating. Red meaning, boy, there was just limited or no structured process in place. Yellow might mean there's a process, but really a lot of opportunities to in execution and make that more effective. And then green, hey, you got a process, you're executing really well. Doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities, and we'll share those opportunities, but that might draw a green. So that's in the lean system summary. We'll provide those strengths and opportunities. One of the examples in this case, the value stream mapping, again, was driven by their CI team. And so the CI team had done the value stream mapping without engagement from operations, without engagement from the site, really the cross-functional leadership team. That was one of the opportunities that we identified. Looking at the lean tool survey, so with all the surveys that we provide, we get that feedback back. Reading this, I know it's really not meant to be read just to visually see it, but it's a matrix. Across the rows are each of the individual submissions and how they rate each one of these processes that are in the vertical. And so you can see some rate them fairly high, some rate them fairly low, and then across each one of these, just the diversity that you see or the variation that you see in the ratings. This first one is around waste elimination and different perspectives on how well we're managing and driving waste out of the organization. We look at an average of all the surveys that we got, and then we're able to compare that with our own evaluation. And that's interesting in that just being able to compare and where, if there's a difference between our own evaluation and the average of the surveys, why is that? Typically, we're going to be a little bit harder on the evaluation, so that's typical, but directionally, it should be similar. And if there's a big gap, it may be because just lack of understanding of really what's needed to drive effectiveness. We summarize the other surveys as well. So the cultural survey, and again, you see the different variations. It really points out the variations. This is what was submitted by the individuals and their surveys. I don't think I said the surveys are anonymous. So they take about 15 minutes to do, but they're anonymous. We get those back. We know the names, but we don't share those with others. So people feel free to share their honest perspective. And these are very helpful, both the lean leadership and the cultural survey. You can see the variation by individual, but also you see the variation by each one of these elements. We summarize, and then you're able to look at what were some of the highest scoring elements of culture and leadership, and what were some of the lowest ones. And that helps develop that roadmap for driving improvement in not just the tools, but in the culture itself. And we summarize the individual survey as well. And then this is one of the visuals we've used for giving a summary of the overall performance or the ratings. The red, yellow, green, the colored blocks were the ones within scope. Again, red, yellow, green. Green being, hey, this is where your strengths are. Yellow, hey, you're making some progress there. Red, didn't see a whole lot of process going on. Okay, so what's uncovered? The feedback that we give, the strengths are identified that can be built upon, the opportunities that enable local coaching that can be done, and focused improvement. Many times, consultants come in and they tell us things that we already know. So there will be some of that. Certainly verification of your perspective on some areas, but also there's going to be some feedback that contradicts where you think you're at. A lot of these things, by having external eyes coming and going to Gemba, we identify things that you may not know exist. I remember one engagement I had where leadership said, describe their stand-up process for daily management. And they described a situation where we meet every day, everybody comes to it, we come to the board, we talk about the KPIs, we talk about the gaps, we talk about the actions that need to be taken. And in reality, after going to Gemba, making observations and talking with people, the stand-up meetings were held once a week. Not everybody showed up. They were still kind of coming in for the day. It was really just we're going to make 100 units today. Didn't have any safety issues yesterday. Have a good day. Wasn't at the board, wasn't engaging. So we find those contradictions between our perspective and what's actually happening in the Gemba in their current state. There's a lot of calibration and perspective on what good looks like. So we're looking to raise the bar. And so if you're down here, we will identify things and have a good conversation about what's needed to get to that next level. We get a good understanding of the management team's perspective, where they're at on their own personal journeys, as well as the helping the organization along. And then just seeing how employees at all levels are engaged in executing the process. The relative scoring gives some indication of where you're at on that journey as well. So then looking at the company roll-up, executive summary is provided. Some of the highlights from this one was just around getting that buy-in, operations engagement with the process. For each one of the systems that we look at, we will provide a one-pager system summary. It covers the strengths that we saw across the organization as well as the opportunities, but not just the opportunities, and then what do I do with that? We make recommendations. Here are the recommendations. Make it actionable. These are the things that you can do given your current state, the things that you can add to that to get to the next level. Up at the top, as I mentioned, in this example, we had 12 different sites. Red, yellow, green is just the number of sites that were at each of those levels. In this case, for Kaizen, there were 4 sites at green level, 7 at yellow, and 1 at red. We're able to summarize all the different systems that were looked at, and we can look at that and be able to see what's our strongest processes. In this case, what has the most green and yellow around daily management and Kaizen? What has the least amount? So you're able to see really where are we relatively strong at, where do we have the most opportunity. We provide the scoring summaries. So how did we score across all of those? And how does that compare with the leadership's perspective of the scoring? As I mentioned before, a lot of times what's in blue is our own evaluation. A lot of times that's going to be a lower score than what the local leadership team might say, but directionally, it's typically in line. And if there's a big gap, that's typically a difference in understanding of really what good looks like. We summarize the surveys, as we mentioned before. One of the other things that's really good we have the opportunity to look at various sites, and so we can see best practices. We can see, hey, you might be pretty good at Gemba walks across your organization. This site is doing this really well. So we're able to take some pictures and share those valuable practices that we've seen in our experience. In addition, because we've got a lot of experience coming in, even some things outside of scope on the systems that we're looking at, we might identify some opportunities and make some recommendations that might be helpful in the journey. In this case, there was some things around leadership training. We recognized it wasn't part of the scope, but we recognized there were some opportunities to be had in how we're developing our leaders. And then all of that comes up into really a customized transformation roadmap that takes into consideration your resources, but also your current state, the gaps that you have, and the sequence of events that is going to take you to that next level. So what's uncovered, in addition to the strengths and opportunities, we provide the recommendations for improvement. So we make it actionable. We provide those valuable practices, the scoring summaries that show that consistency or variation across sites, the scoring summaries that show which processes, which systems are executing the best and which ones have the most opportunity. We compare the management team's perspectives against our own, and we also have the opportunity to notice those additional areas that may be outside of scope, but we give maybe some recommendations in some other areas as well, and then that roadmap for improvement. Okay, next, looking at the Lean Toolbox assessment. So that was all about the site assessment and roll-up. This is about the toolbox. So the toolbox, many organizations put a lot of time and effort into the full toolbox, and they really don't think about the deployment or the execution. It's all about the toolbox. We got to make sure we've got the best tools or the best training materials. So that's not going to get you where you want to be. But without that strong toolbox, you're not going to have that foundation to build from, that consistency and that standard work for deployment as well. So they go hand in hand. So looking at the toolbox assessment, we have really a rubric, a structured process for evaluating the toolbox. This tool assessment gets into the content of the training materials, the completeness, the clarity, the presentation, the practical application, the examples, the knowledge transfer, and we have a structured process that will review each system. In this case, it looks like problem solving, how well are those materials set up for problem solving. The next, we have a content outline. So for each of the systems, there's really a rubric for evaluating that training material for each one of those. So for problem solving, what would it be? It would be around how well do we cover plan, do, check, act, each of those. How well do we provide examples and experiential learning for getting to root cause? What does that look like? And so we're evaluating your materials for that. And then in addition to that, we have a couple checklists, a content checklist, and this applies across any of the materials. It gets into things like the purpose. Is it well stated? Are there facilitator notes included? Is there agenda, objectives, examples, those kind of things? And we look across all of the different systems and whether that is included. The job aids. How well are we set up to support using those materials for effective implementation? So is there a facilitator notes? Is there facilitator pre-work? How do we set up and get ready for this event that we're going to launch? Do we have templates? Do we have examples and case studies? Pre-reading, pre-work, those kind of things go into the job aids. And with all that, we provide a scoring summary for each one of these systems. You can see which elements or which systems you have really good materials, really good complete toolbox, and which ones have some work to do. And from the content that we provided, I don't think I covered that, but we're also providing those strengths of the materials as well as the opportunities. So it's not just a rating, but you have some idea of what to work on. And then we provide some recommendations. So looking at hey, this material was good as is, you're good to go. Doesn't mean there isn't some opportunities for improvement that we would have shared, but really good as is. Or we make some recommendations. Hey, we think it could be improved. We think you have the capability and skill set to be able to make those improvements yourself, and that's what we would recommend. Or we think that we can help. We can help with that, developing your own materials and furthering those, strengthening them to get to where you want to be. And in some cases, Lean Focus does license these tool sets, these proven tools, and so we can offer licensing for bringing these tools into your own business. Okay, so what's uncovered? I didn't cover this, but even just the inventory of what's in the current toolbox, a lot of time that's telling and provides some understanding of where we're at in the complexity of our toolbox. Certainly the inconsistencies, incompleteness, we provide the strengths and opportunities as well as the relative scoring and detailed recommendations on how to improve. And getting towards the end here, how to use all these inputs. So how can Lean Focus help in this process? Reviewing the feedback for clarity and understanding. So we share a lot of information. What does it all mean? And we'll spend the time with you to make sure it's clear and understood. Developing that roadmap for improvement. That's got to be a customized roadmap for you, where you're at today, with the resources you have, and we can work with you on developing that roadmap for getting better. We can provide training to implement the effective the processes. We can provide coaching. Coaching for key stakeholders, your leaders, your CI teams, but we can also get engaged with facilitating Kaizens. And to be honest, this is a lot of what Lean Focus does, is engages with their clients in facilitating Kaizens to get that breakthrough improvement that's needed. We can also do train the trainer with your CI leaders and others, and then we can license some content from the toolbox, as I mentioned, and working with your team to improve your existing materials. So with that, talking about next steps, getting started, there is, Damon talked about the download in the handout. Should be this sheet or a similar sheet that just covers some of the basics of what we've reviewed today. So you can contact us anytime to have a conversation. And just sharing some additional resources from Lean Focus, you can visit our website, leanfocus.com. Just been upgraded. It looks pretty good. There's a lot of good content in there. Some of the new things that have been added is this Lean Catalyst interview. Damon has some interviews with various CEOs and their perspective on what's needed from leadership to drive excellence in execution. And so those can be very interesting. You can connect that way, and then certainly following us on LinkedIn. And there's also additional webinars if you're interested in learning more about some of the things that we do or some of the approaches that we take. Certainly there's some other webinars that you can take a look at. And just a closing thought, you know, continuous improvement is hard. And there's a lot of pieces needed to be successful. And so we can help you evaluate whether you got the tools, whether you've got what is needed for execution, and it really comes down to the behaviors and the culture and how all of these different tools in your system, in the Lean business system, are connected and working together. So with that, I appreciate your time today. Hope that was helpful, and I'll open it up for any questions you might have.
Thanks, Jeff. We have several questions here, so let's get going. First question is, how do you assess expertise, capabilities, and capacity that's in place against the requirements for a successful Lean transformation?
How do we assess
expertise, capabilities, and capacity? So I can start there and I'll let you pile on. So I think in our process that you just laid out, the site interviews whereby which you're talking with leaders, middle managers, and frontline, both in their self-assessment and in the Gemba visits where you're going and seeing these things together and asking questions of those people, reveals their expertise, their capability, and whether or not they have capacity, right? Because if there's nobody there to answer the question on this, then by virtue of that person not being there, you don't have that capacity, as an example. Or just in how they answer questions about like daily management. From your own experience, Jeff, you can determine, which would then go in the leadership summary, how capable or incapable those people are. So it's not just whether or not the tool is being brought to life in the site, it's whether or not the people at the site understand how to deploy the tools successfully.
Yeah, it's such a complicated equation. There's so many pieces. It's like a machine working with dozens of gears, and when one of those gears breaks, when one of those gears is missing, the whole system doesn't work. And so that's really what we're looking for, is the existence of the tools. That's important, but the engagement of leadership, the right type of leadership, understanding what's needed on a daily basis, on a strategic basis, and just that experience and that culture and the behaviors that are needed for success.
Next question: who needs to go with you on your Gemba walks and your interviews?
Yeah, so we don't want to have a huge party walking around. That makes people a little bit limited in what they're willing to share or be transparent. But always welcome one or two people walking with me to hear the questions that I ask, to hear the responses. That's very helpful for them to hear firsthand and to get that discovery of really where we're at in our current state. So one or two people, people are typically made up of the leadership team. or their CI team to learn. And as we're going around, it provides coaching and really good, deep discussion about what we see and what we hear.
This question is around the time it takes, Jeff, so maybe we can answer this in two parts. So for a site, including pre-work, being on site, and doing the write-up, how long is one site? And then we can just, add that to the number of sites.
In terms of the time needed from them?
Yeah, so for us to do our work, do the pre-work, show up on site, do the observations, and then do the final write-up, how long?
Yeah, so prepping for it doesn't take a lot of time, just maybe an hour beforehand. Certainly the 2 days on site that we spend, and actually we did a lot of them in a day and a half because we're traveling to the next site, for example. And then we need a couple hours for really compiling all that information to be able to give valuable feedback. So a couple hours for each of the sites. We can do that the afternoon of day 2, but it might be more fruitful to be able to take a couple days to be able to spend that time and put some thought into it to be able to provide that feedback.
So it's safe to say by site, 2 to 3 days, something somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the second part of that question, the toolbox, for one tool to fully download, preview, assess, do the write-up on a tool by tool basis, how long does that take?
That's probably a few hours. I think we probably average 2 to 4 hours on each tool to be able to go in and review it and make the recommendations.
So if they wanted to look at 10 tools in their toolbox today, that would take us a week to preview, click through all the slides, look at all the training materials, do our write-up, create those compilation results and recommendations. So a week in that example. All right. Yep. So next question. Why would you use Lean Focus to do this analysis instead of using our own CI team? And maybe I could take this and then let you pile on. So we see hundreds, if not thousands, of sites over the last 7 years. So we see world-class companies, we see middle-of-the-road companies. So we see a lot that CI leaders that may have worked for one business don't have the benefit of seeing just the quantity, scope, breadth, and diversity of just the clients that we deal with. In addition to that, the people on our team, like Jeff and others, have worked in world-class organizations who are known industry-wide as being the best at these things. So they bring themselves a frame of reference in addition to the hundreds of clients they get to work with that Jeff talked about. So that's one of the other reason. And I'd add a second one, which is it's sometimes hard to see something that which you're so close to. Even if you're trying to be impartial and remaining bias free, we don't have those preconditions or biases. We come in without the history, right? So it allows a third-party perspective, free of politics as to who created what and whether it's or not. It's just what we see versus what we see out in the world. So that's how I would answer it. Jeff, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would add that kind of building on the last thing you said, just we've been doing this for so long. We as a company, I'm a CI manager there, and I've been doing this so long, and we're just not getting where we need to be. We just need to work harder. We just need to tweak this a little bit and get better, but we continue to take the same approach that isn't getting us where we need to be. And so we can come in and help give that guidance on what's missing from the equation, what's missing to take you to where you want to be. Why are your current efforts not getting the fruit that you're looking for?
So this question here is, organizations who are interested in Lean, if you can quantify the returns in terms of dollar savings, how can this best be done at the start of a Lean transformation?
Yeah, well, really understanding your baseline, where are you coming from, making sure you've got your KPIs in place, and then developing that strategy. So whether you do that through a value stream map, strategy deployment, identifying really what those gaps are, and then Kaizening for improvement. Attack those different areas, those biggest opportunities that you have, and driving breakthrough improvement. And you'll see that in your KPIs. You'll see that improvement in the results that you get, and being able to turn that into dollars for the business.
Yeah. So, I get to see a lot of the results across the team and where we're working with the clients. And on average, going back 7 years of Lean Focus, we average between 5 to 12 to 1 against our fees, return on investment. So if it's a $25,000 a week in terms of consulting fees, you can expect 5 to 12 times an ROI on that can be delivered oftentimes immediately as a result of the Kaizen or the workshop that was done. So in terms of the types of savings, it's things that you would normally think about. It's direct labor, it's indirect labor, it's cost of goods sold, material cost reduction through improvements in purchase price variance, or design improvements that you're making related to VAVE, taking cost out of your indirect material cost and things like that. Working capital improvements in the form of inventory reduction, working capital improvements in the form of accounts payable, extending terms out longer, or accounts receivable, collecting cash faster. If we're talking growth, it could be organic growth at a higher rate than what you're experiencing today, top line, and margin expansion, which is improved through price or improved through less discounting, optimizing selling prices, selling more at the point of sale to more customers. So all of this, and if you're not getting financial impact out of doing Lean, frankly, you're doing it wrong. So that's the whole point, right? Value creation through waste elimination. So that is exactly what this is aimed at doing. Jeff, how would you, this is kind of a question more related to KPI boards, daily management boards. Any tips that you can offer on making these interesting and engaging, daily management?
Interesting and engaging, solving problems, making sure that it's not just a management board. A lot of times that's what we see is it's a board for managers walking around and being able to see what our current performance is, and that's where it ends. So it needs to close that loop of not just saying, are we winning or losing? Are we getting better or worse? What are the top issues that we have, and what are we doing about it? What are the actions that we're taking? And it's not a management board, it's a team board. So engaging that team in that conversation to see where are we winning and losing, and what are we doing about it when we're losing, to close those gaps. So that transition into problem solving, when that happens, that's building the culture and the behaviors of people not being satisfied with where we're at and just going on to the daily routine. But getting engaged in the process to make it better. People like that. It's addictive once you have that. And using those boards, if it's not doing that for you, answering those 4 questions, you need to really focus on the connection to problem solving and engagement.
Next question, Jeff. Can we conduct a site assessment without going through a full toolbox assessment?
Yeah, for sure. These two, we talked about the site assessment, we talked about the toolbox assessment. We've done them together, we've done them in parallel or separate. So we can come in, and if you're satisfied with your toolbox, we can come in and do the site assessment. If you want just the toolbox evaluation, we can do that as well.
Yeah, sometimes we find that organizations don't have quote unquote a toolbox, but they're implementing tools in the factory, but they don't have training materials to leverage. So we just assess the sites themselves. Maybe one more question here. Is there a formal report out for the site at the end of the visit?
Yeah, we've done different things that way. We've done the informal feedback while we're there on site. We've done some virtual sharing of the feedback with their leadership team. That's those are usually the 2 options. We've also done, I guess, the more of a formal, hey, let's take a break the last couple of hours of the second day, put together some slides, and bring the leadership team to have that discussion there. So really flexible in that, being able to give that feedback. That's so important that the leadership team understands the feedback that we give them.
Yeah, and the deliverable is this final PowerPoint executive summary that combines all those studies that you've done that they have that they can reference, of course.
Yeah, and a lot of times we're getting, even weeks, months after we've provided that. It takes a lot to digest everything that we give, and so we may have some follow-up questions that we're happy to engage with them on.
Cool. All right, well, we're at time. Thank you so much, Jeff. It was a great topic. I learned a lot, as always. Just a reminder for those that registered this presentation, the recording will be emailed to you one day after the conclusion of today's webinar. So you can watch this at your leisure as many times or as when you'd like. And you can also forward the presentation to others in your business. If you'd like to have them take part, they can watch this again at their own time and leisure as well. So thank you, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye now.
Thank you.